Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another special episode of The Issue Live. I'm your host, L. Let's jump right into it. So, first we have is a little bit of a debate recap. So the next upcoming debate is another 10 candidates who are basically, I don't want to say the only few left remaining, but the only 10 they decided that qualified for this debate, which we'll get into later. So if you notice, the first pasty motherfucker who finally dropped out of the race is Mr. Jay Inslee, who we've talked about before and let you guys basically know that he wasn't shit. I don't know if you remember his face. There he is right there. Breaking news, of course. I'm sure you guys are sad about him as well. Him, John Hickenlooper, and Kristen Gillibrand as well has dropped out of the race. Thank you very much for not wasting our time. So September 12th, so mark that on your calendars. If you don't watch it, we will be doing a debate recap for that again. And with that being said, we're moving on to our next topic, which also pertains to the debate and really fucking pisses me off. All right? I talk about Tulsi a lot. I know I do. I understand. I talk about Tulsi a lot. She's my favorite presidential candidate. But there's been some funny shit going on. Some real funny, weird shit going on when it comes to Tulsi. We've talked about this many times previously on other episodes. When Google tried to play her, when they talked about it was an algorithm problem they were having, that's why they shut down her ad account. Right after, for hours after the debate, after she was the most Googled person out of all the presidential candidates, she was the most Googled person, and all of a sudden her ad account was suspended. And now, all of a sudden, somehow Tulsi doesn't qualify, even though she meets the amount of donors. I think for this round you had to get to at least 160,000 independent donors, and she blew past that. But you have to qualify for you have to be polling at a certain number, right? And which she is qualifying in a lot of polls. But the way the DNC set it up is that she doesn't technically qualify for the polls that they pre-selected, which is the biggest bunch of bullshit I could fucking think of. I mean, that's crazy. So, and they're not even open about which polls that they chose to qualify. Basically, all the polls that she's doing the best in, they decided to not qualify and use that as an excuse to not allow her in the next debate, which is crazy because, to me, the biggest reason why they don't want to see her on the next debate is because how bad she fucked up Kamala Harris in that last debate. She made her poll numbers drop. She suffered a blow in that, and Kamala Harris is very much the golden child, which I said to you guys before in previous episodes. I said how the media is going to build up a certain character who they feel is their person. And for one, Tulsi is very much a anti-war candidate. Her entire campaign is basically wrapped around anti-war, which is basically my sentiment when it comes to war. I generally don't like war. I don't care which dictator we're going after. You know, we have to stop being America's police. That's genuinely how I feel. That's why I like Tulsi as much as I do. And it just, you know, I don't want it to become this conspiracy, right? But it's getting ridiculous. Like I said, when Google was the first perpetrators, and now all of a sudden, the DNC doesn't want to allow her in the debate. It's getting out of hand. It is ridiculous. And so it's very troubling to me. And like I said, I don't want to make it a conspiracy, but it seems to be a common thread. And as bad as she fucked Kamala up in that last debate, and you know, they made sure all the polls that Kamala qualified for were on their list of qualified polls. but just so happens that the ones that Tulsi doesn't qualify, and they're not being transparent about it whatsoever. And so in her eyes and in my eyes and probably all of her supporters, it just feels like she's being cheated. She's met every single standard that it takes to qualify for these debates, but all of a sudden, now that the DNC wants to pick and choose which polls that they want to accept, now she's all of a sudden not qualifying for the debate, which is ridiculous. She's being cheated, point blank, period. There's no other way to see it or look at it. That's just what it is. So, moving on to this was a troubling headline when I first saw it, and this is, I mean, we talked about this before, Javi, that so the children of troops and other government employees abroad won't be automatically made United States citizens. Basically saying that they're not just going to be automatically made, right? They're going to have to go through processes and steps, right? Which it's not saying that they're not going to be allowed to be United States citizens. In reality, it's probably still likely that they become citizens. It's just the fact that they would go out of their way to make it harder. It's almost the most un-American thing you can do. I mean, especially when it comes to the troops. You have active military members who are stationed overseas, and if they have children while they're in active duty overseas, stationed at some, base in Japan or Afghanistan somewhere, or Germany, Korea, wherever it might be, that their children, an American citizen who is serving the country, that their children wouldn't automatically be United States citizens. You would make them have to go through a process, which inevitably more than likely would make them citizens, I'm sure of. But the fact that it's just isn't an innate thing, that is just not something that's given, that's probably the most un-American thing I've ever heard come out from this administration, which is pretty crazy. I know, back in the 1800s during the Civil War, they used to grant citizenship to many of the Irish immigrants in exchange for their service, for military service. They granted them citizenship. That's a big way how America was shaped and formed and gained the citizens that it got. It was done so through military service. That's the most patriotic thing you can do for your country, is to serve for it, to sacrifice for it. And the fact that sacrifice wouldn't be given, wouldn't allow their children to become United States citizens just off top. You have to go through a process of vetting and whatever else. It's pretty terrible. And it was troubling to see the headline when I first saw it. And it doesn't even make sense. I don't even understand what the angle is in this. Like, what is, what was the purpose in making this law come to fruition? So I don't know about that one. But moving on, we don't have any hot takes today. So just for you guys, so you guys know, if you guys ever want me to talk about a certain thing or just want my general opinion on certain things, you can always go to my Instagram, you can go to my Twitter, you can even drop a comment in the YouTube pages, or just say something in chat. If there's something that you want me to say or talk about during our hot take process, being that I don't have any hot take. So if you had a question or anything you want particularly me to talk or say about, this is the opportunity during hot takes to do it. So with that, we don't have a hot take. So we'll move on to our main story for tonight. So for today's main topic is we're focused on the relationship between Israel and Palestine. But before we get into the current state of their relationship, let's look into how Israel came into existence. Now, Israel's inception began in 1947, post-World War II, when the United Nations General Assembly recommended the creation of a Jewish state. And at the time, United States State Department, CIA, and Pentagon all opposed, but eventually voted and the United States gave it support. And over the next couple of months, propelled a armed aggression that was And over the next couple of months, propelled a armed aggression that was once on what was once a 95% Jewish state, eradicating nearly 400,000 indigenous Palestinians to create what we know now as Israel. And strangely enough, Israel has yet to declare borders or write a constitution. Now, I'm guessing it's because if they were to declare borders, they wouldn't be able to steal any more Palestinian land. And if they were to write a constitution, they would have to adhere to it. Now, from about 1947 to the current day, Israel and Palestine have been fighting a largely one-sided war, mainly because of the help and influence Israel receives from the United States and other UN-backed countries. And over the course of nearly 70-year-old war, there have been many atrocities committed by both sides. But again, largely a one-sided fight. Now, there are many layers to this complicated conflict. And this is just a brief synopsis. And I suggest you do further research yourself. But I want to get into the current situation of the Palestinians, because it is a dire one. Currently, Israel occupies more than 95% of what used to be Palestinian land, and soon seek to control 100% of it. Now, in some ways, right, I can understand Israel's outlook. They have the money and resources to create a modern society in the Middle East that this world has never seen before. But they are doing it at the expense of indigenous people who at this point just want the same freedoms that Israelis enjoy. Israel is remarkably oppressive to the Palestinians and very open with their hate, and have openly committed war crimes that the United Nations and the United States State Department has refused to investigate. I mean, we're talking about the murder of children, press, and otherwise innocent people. Listen to the way this Palestinian describes the mindset of the Israeli security forces in the Gaza Strip.
هم هدفهم يعني يشيلوا الشباب من قطاع غزة، يعني خلص يدمروا مستقبل الشباب عشان لا يدافعوا عن الوطن بعد هيك ولا يقربوا على السجل الفاصل، لأنه خلص يعني مدن الشباب وقعت، فيش حد بضل يدافع عن فلسطين.
Yeah. So now the reason the Israeli people don't have a problem with what they're doing mainly is because of the state-sponsored propaganda machine that teaches Israeli citizens from youth that Palestinians are their enemy, and the only way to deal with them is to basically eradicate them. You have a situation in the West Bank that is ripping land away from Palestinians, and the situation in Gaza where you have people being held illegally against their will in an open-air prison where they can't leave, and any dissent or resistance results in murder. Now, all of this is happening with the support of the United States and other UN countries. Now, I don't have the answers to this problem, but in closing, right? The first thing that needs to happen are the crimes against human rights have to stop. Allow the press to do their job and make Israel accountable for what they're doing. If there's ever going to be a two-state solution, that is the first thing that has to happen. If there's ever going to be a two-state solution. Because when you try to fix a situation without properly holding the right people accountable, it's almost impossible to achieve peace. Just that one thing could possibly make it easier to bring the two sides to the table and work something out. Because the current path of this conflict, left unchecked, will only result in the eradication of indigenous people from their homeland, and that is unacceptable. So, with that being said, let's move on to L of the Week. My favorite episode, part of the show. And so Supreme now collabs with the Carlyle Group. If you're not familiar with the Carlyle Group, they're basically just an investment firm. But what they invest in is death and destruction. So currently, Carlyle Group owns 50% of all the 50% of Supreme. So for all you fuckboys out there that like to rock Supreme, just know the people who own 50% of this company that you love so much is heavily invested into the bombing and murder of innocent men, women, and children, specifically in Yemen, when it comes to that particular aircraft that you see in this picture here. So, Supreme, you get this week's L of the Week. You know what? I might as well add fuckboys on there too, right? Because for all you fuckboys out there, every time you buy Supreme, just know you're sponsoring genocide. So we'll put you guys down here. Fuckboys. So we have Supreme and fuckboys. This belongs to you. And with that being said, that concludes another episode of The Issue Live. Thank you guys all for tuning in to a special episode. And next episode will be a debate recap. So this ought to be interesting. I'm sure I'm going to have a lot of shit to say after that one, after seeing all those bums up there. So make sure you guys are all tuned in, and I will see you then. Good night, everybody. Stay out of trouble, kids.